Have you ever walked into a store, looked at the price of something you've bought 100 times before, and thought, wait a second, was it always this expensive? Or maybe you've been paying your rent, your bills, your groceries, and at the end of the month, you realize your money just doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Why does everything keep getting more expensive? Is it corporate greed? Government mismanagement? A natural part of how economies work? Or is there something else going on? Something that affects every single person, no matter where they live or what they do? The answer is inflation, a force that quietly eats away at the value of your money, making things cost more and more over time. It's a slow, creeping phenomenon that can feel almost invisible, until one day you wake up and realize that the price of your morning coffee has doubled, your rent has skyrocketed, and saving for the future feels impossible. So, what exactly is inflation? Why does it happen? And most importantly, what can we do about it? Let's break it down. What is inflation? And why does it happen? Inflation is, at its core, the rise in prices over time. But the real question is, why do prices rise? What actually causes inflation? There is no single answer, no one villain we can point to. Inflation can happen for a lot of reasons, but at its core, it's a simple problem of supply and demand. When people have more money to spend, but there aren't enough goods and services to go around, prices go up. Imagine an auction where a rare painting is up for sale. The more people bidding on it, the higher the price goes. That's exactly what happens in an economy when there's too much money chasing too few goods. But inflation isn't always about people having more money. It can also happen when the cost of producing goods goes up. If raw materials become more expensive, if supply chains are disrupted, or if companies have to pay workers higher wages, they pass those costs on to you, the consumer. And then there's the role of central banks and governments. When a government prints too much money, flooding the economy with cash, it might feel good at first. After all, who doesn't want more money? But when the supply of money increases faster than the supply of goods and services, prices rise. The money in your pocket starts to lose value, and suddenly, you need twice as much of it to buy the same things. This is exactly what happened in countries like Venezuela and Zimbabwe, where governments printed massive amounts of money to cover spending, only to see their currencies collapse. People went from buying bread with a few bills to needing entire wheelbarrows full of cash. Of course, the situation isn't always that extreme. In most developed countries, inflation happens gradually, creeping up year after year, making life just a little bit harder each time. How does inflation affect your life? At first, inflation might not seem like a big deal. A few cents more for coffee? A slight increase in gas prices? No problem. But over time, those small increases add up. Suddenly, your grocery bill is 10, 20, even 30% higher than it was just a couple of years ago. Your paycheck might have stayed the same, but your rent, your bills, your daily expenses, they've all gone up. And it's not just about what you spend, it's about what you save. Imagine putting money in a savings account today, thinking you're setting yourself up for the future. But if inflation is rising faster than the interest your bank pays you, that money is actually losing value. What might have bought you a comfortable retirement 30 years ago might barely cover basic expenses by the time you actually retire. Inflation also affects housing. If home prices soar, younger generations struggle to afford homes, while those who already own property see their investments rise in value. And if you're renting, well, landlords raise prices to keep up with inflation, and suddenly the cost of just having a place to live becomes overwhelming. And then there's debt. Inflation loves debt. If you borrowed money at a fixed interest rate, inflation actually helps you, because you're paying back that loan with money that's worth less than when you borrowed it. But if inflation is out of control, interest rates rise, making it harder and harder to take out loans for houses, businesses, or even just a car. It's a cycle. Prices go up, wages try to catch up, governments intervene, and the entire economy shifts. Can inflation be controlled? This is the big question. Governments and central banks spend enormous amounts of time trying to balance inflation, keeping it high enough to encourage economic growth, but not so high that it wrecks people's savings. One of the main tools they use is interest rates. When inflation starts to rise too fast, central banks like the Federal Reserve increase interest rates. This makes borrowing more expensive, which slows down spending and lowers demand, helping to cool inflation. But it's a delicate game. Raise interest rates too much and you risk a recession, where businesses close, unemployment rises, and the economy slows down too much. Don't raise them enough, and inflation keeps eating away at people's savings. Governments can also try to control spending, cutting back on stimulus programs or raising taxes to slow down demand. But these moves are often unpopular, and in a world where political cycles are short, leaders don't always want to make hard choices that could cost them votes. So, will prices ever go back down? It's unlikely. Once prices go up, they rarely come down. The cost of living today is dramatically higher than it was 10, 20, or 50 years ago. And while inflation rates may slow down, prices themselves usually stay high. But here's the good news. While inflation is inevitable, you can protect yourself. Investing wisely, diversifying your income, and staying informed about economic trends can help you stay ahead. Assets like stocks, real estate, and commodities like gold tend to hold their value even as inflation rises. Holding too much cash, on the other hand, can be a losing game. At the end of the day, inflation is a complex, inevitable part of modern economies. It's not something we can stop, but it is something we can prepare for. The key is understanding how it works, how it affects you, and how to make smart financial decisions in a world where everything just keeps getting more expensive. What do you think? Have you noticed prices rising in your daily life? What's the one thing that's gotten so expensive it shocked you? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights on money, economics, and the world around you. Thanks for watching.